guys, I am back again. This is with my round 2 game of the latest tournament I went to, the New South Wales GT Grand Tournament? It must be. Yeah, New South Wales Grand Tournament, that sounds right. If you want to know a bit about my list and my thoughts with it, go back to the previous video, because I don't want to discuss it at the start of every video, to be honest. Round 2, after my big 20-0 in round 1, got me against Jack's Ogre Khans. I don't know if he got a 20 in round 1, but he definitely got like an 18 or a 19. I don't even know against what, to be honest. But Jack's a great guy, so I was very happy to get to play into him. What he brought was a Shamanism Master, a BSB with 18 inches basically, a Mammoth Hunter with Destinies, 10 Bruisers that have Swift Stride, 6 Tribesmen that cause Fear and are immune to Terror, Tusker Cav that are rerolling all their 1s, 2 Kineters, 3 Tigers, 5 Trappers, a Rock Oryx, and a Giant. So I guess things that sort of stand out to me immediately are the fact that my bunker doesn't really love Kineters or Totem Beasts, but he doesn't really have much shooting, so there's going to be points where if those Kineters come on and are causing trouble, I can probably just run out my characters on their own for a while I try and deal with those Kineters, or maybe more likely avoid those Kineters. By this point as well, this is like game 2, so Jack and I are a decent few beers already, and we have more as the game goes on, so it was always going to be a pretty chill, fast and loose game. But really, his list doesn't bring that many things that scare me. Like, I think that if I'm giving one boost to my Minotaurs, they can pretty much fight anything in his army. The Centaurs are a lot faster than him, or maybe not a lot faster, but at least with a Razortusk Chariot next to them, you know, they're 2 advance over his Tusker Cabin, more than that against everything else. So they're going to be a pretty good threat to sort of like zone things or get those long bomb charges, because obviously the Tusker Cavalry with great weapons are a lot less scary if I charge them and they don't get their impact hits and stuff. Yeah, so I think mainly probably I thought this was a pretty good matchup, particularly because I've got those binding scrolls for stopping some important buffs when they need to come in. The objective on this one... wasn't 3 pennies, because we didn't pick anything up. Oh, secure target. Yeah, so we had marching... No, not marching comms. We had Dawn Assault and secure target. So the classic situation where you can just pop your own objective down in your own little corner. But I'll get to the game if I'm over there eventually. There we are. So this is after... Like, this is how we deployed. I want to say that I ended up dropping everything to go first. I think that's correct. Basically, he's got his Rock Oryx back here, he's got his Giant on the other flank, and then he's got his, like, the bulk of his army in between these 2 impassable terrains. I'm not sure how I got first turn, because I definitely picked sides. I'm pretty sure I did. Maybe he just didn't drop everything, or he let me drop first or something, but... yeah, well, whatever happened, happened. So yeah, this is basically how we set up. I've got my Razortusk and my Chariot sort of guarding over on this flank. I don't know how they feel really about the Giant matchup. Like, Chariots I would imagine probably lose that fight. Razortusk, it really just depends on if I fail my fear and stuff. Because otherwise if I charge him, I'm in pretty good nick. Up the middle, I'm pretty happy with where I am. The Mongrels maybe don't want to fight the Tuskers. They probably do if I get a Druidism buff up, but if he even gets his Hereditary or the number 1 from Shamanism, that's probably a bad matchup for them, like the Mongrels regardless, because I'd end up winning them on 6s even with my Strength 4 banner. I think, to be honest, the Mongrel position I don't remember how I felt at the time, but I'm not happy with it now, and it might have just been sort of a space thing where I don't want them too far out. They don't want to fight a giant. I need them sort of central. If he did end up counter-deploying me because I've dropped for first, which is I think what happened, it's probably just, I drop them centrally and he has them across from them and there's nothing I can really do about it. But anyway, that's sort of the vague ideas of what I was thinking. In terms of the objective markers, Jack actually placed his fairly centrally, because I placed mine, it's cut off in this corner down here. Like, I placed mine basically as far back as I could. And then, weirdly, didn't place any real scoring units over near there. I guess I don't have that many to spare, but yeah, like I made it hard for him to get, but I didn't really make it all that easy for me to get without losing something important anyway. So it might have even been better to have the Mongrels over that side, so they can maybe just shuffle through the ruins as like all they do in the game. But yeah, hindsight's 20/20. I don't know how many pitches we've got, so we'll just go through and see what happens. This is after my turn 1 movement. So the Centaurs actually went for a charge on that Mammoth Hunter over here. They needed like a 9 or a 10 maybe and failed it. But I wasn't all that terrified about what happened if I did fail, basically. So they stumbled forward a little bit. I pushed pretty hard through the center. I think that's probably not my max move forward, but I did have to be wary of the fact that he does out-chaff me with his 3 units against my 2. So the Minotaurs are sort of the only thing that I could push and force a buff through with a little bit of impunity. So this is after Jack's turn 1. Oh, by the way, his trappers are sort of over on this hill. I think that was probably, in my opinion, a mistake on his part, because nothing was ever really going to happen over here. So they weren't concerning me all that much, and they're too slow to get in and be chaff later on. I prefer them somewhat central, and even though you probably lose them early, they get into a terrain piece like this forest and trap it early, and then just early game chaff, sort of the same way that Warhounds or something are. So I didn't really think that was a great idea having them out there. We can't really see a couple of things because I didn't take a great picture. His Oryx has advanced. His Hunter got out of line of sight of these Centaurs, and then I'm pretty sure just in front of them they're being chaffed by Warhound. That's pretty much it for this turn. I charged the Warhound and I killed it, knowing that I essentially kept my stuff, or this is, I don't know, knowing that I could at least keep my stuff out of this the range of his blocks. I could focus my buffs on the Centaurs, which is something that I played Druidism so much that it's quite natural to me now, but probably worth pointing out. Oftentimes, the way I sort of can play the game is as soon as you get a Druidism buff into a unit, all of a sudden they can fight well above their weight. But since I've got a list, and Beastmen in general really need Druidism most of the time, you often can't press aggressively or declare like 2 risky charges in a turn, because you can only declare the risky charge knowing that if they fail, you can protect them with Druidism. Because, I think with my +2 to cast, I don't get it for Throne, but just in general, I think I'm quite likely usually get 2 spells up, maybe a Totem, sometimes in this case. But I think with 2 spells, usually there's not many things that are going to take a large unit of Centaurs or a large unit of Minotaurs, basically. Same for Razortusk, really, but Razortusk have the problem of low leadership, so sometimes they can... and the fact that I can't sometimes play them out on the flank and stuff, they don't love... They don't love that sort of thing where, they get into a tough combat, but they're steadfast and only lost by a couple. whereas often the things that still threaten Minotaurs or Centaurs, it takes more wounds, at least in the setup that I've got, to deny them that second rank that usually will keep them steadfast. Anyway, yeah, so I did that, knowing that I could buff them. The Oryx was still a decent distance away, like he needed an 8 or a 9, I think, on the charge. Probably roughly the same for the Mammoth Hunter. So I didn't want both of them in, but if only one of them got in, I thought I had a pretty decent chance to stick around, depending on what buffs I can get through. Honestly, I don't know what turn... I don't even know what turn this is. But I'm just going to say what basically happened is that... so what actually happened is the Gargoyles chaffed the Mammoth Hunter, which is why I didn't need to be worried about being charged by both. Which is just in this little corner over here. So I know that this Oryx at one point failed a charge. So its position here seems to be further back than it was. So... maybe after I charged him, he didn't charge me and he moved it back or something. I'm not really sure. All I know is that the next time I had the chance, I declared another charge against that Oryx and I took it off. We're still playing pretty cagey around the center. My Chariots did fail charge into this dog that had moved up here. But I'm kind of sitting here. Once I take out this Oryx, I'm going to have a decent threat coming over from the left. I'm going to have... still, I think, sort of control the middle and good chances to take this middle objective. And it's going to be really hard for him to get anyone over in that left-hand corner. I also was not sure how I felt about Chariot going into his Mammoth Hunter, but sort of kept that as a threat to look down there. We did, I don't know when we remembered, it was either turn 3 or turn 4, but at least in turn 2, we forgot about the Kineters coming on. And then I think the first time they came on, only one of them came on. Yeah, okay, so basically what's happened, this is the result of the Oryx dying to the Centaurs. They turned around and they basically kept the tribesmen in their front. It was a relatively long charge, but I have, I think, Stone Skin up on them. As you can see, I've got a couple of buffs. This is probably... no, it must be regen because of the range. But so I think they've got regen. I think the Minotaurs have Stone Skin and like... I got this kind of thing a lot during the tournament, where because of the Seat of the Dark Forest, it seemed like I could get through a lot of spells. Like, I had a lot of phases where the opponent would be saving like all their dice for Stone Skin. So if they had 5 dice and I had, 8, which was often the case, I think, with my channel 2. Particularly because in the early phases with Druidism, you can often save 3 dice, 3 Veil tokens. You push through Oaken Throne on 2, and that takes you down to 6-5, and then you push through Regen on 2, and that pushes you down to 4 against 5. But then with 4 dice against 5, and you've got a +2 to cast, they've only got like a 1.5 advantage in the averages. So I found that actually quite frequently the dice were falling in my favour in those sort of dice-offs. But it's quite a risky thing, I think. So maybe the strategy for the opponent should be to, Dispel Throne, dispel the 2 dice or the 3 dice on regen, and then let Stone Skin go through, because otherwise you're risking letting 2 buffs go through. Yeah, like it just seemed with my +2 to cast, it was really... I could get 2 buffs through semi-reliably. I did send the Chariot into the Hunter and basically stuck on him. I don't know if I won or lost, but whoever did win just stuck around basically. Here I've chaffed the Mongrels. I've sort of moved back. These the dog must have come off and chaffed again, and these Chariots have now killed it basically. But I just moved these other things around so they can't be teared off the board basically. And pushed the Minotaurs up, because particularly with the Mournfang chaffed, I was pretty happy to fight basically anything there. And okay, so a lot's happened from here. So I'll just describe it here because it makes a little bit more sense. These tribesmen tried to fight the Centaurs, and actually they may not have even charged in the end. Yeah, I know he was considering it, but whatever happened, they didn't make it. The Bruisers went into the Minotaurs, which again, it's just unless you got something very significant on your side, like it's typically just a mistake to go into those minnows. I don't know what happened in the combat, but I don't remember the exact numbers or anything, but I absolutely butchered him. I'm pretty sure the Minotaurs overran and caught him. In fact, I'm pretty sure from the angle that he had to align to, they overran and got into like the Mournfang flank and then killed those guys. Oh, no. Maybe they didn't overrun and hit them, but they fled. So when it declared a charge into their flank, they fled all the way over here, basically. Which is why you see the Minotaurs a little bit later on. So they've now rallied. The Minotaurs have now had a chance as well to just turn around and get these tribesmen trying to block them from the objective, basically. Down here, I had to give the Kinida who came on a 10 into the rear of my bunker, which I really didn't want, but it was sort of as far away as I could get. I maybe could have... I don't know. At the time, at least, I thought it was as far away as I can get without being able to see a picture of exactly where the positions were. It's a little bit hard to be sure, but maybe anywhere else the characters could have jumped out to. The tribesmen could have got them or something. So I did give him that, and I did also think I'll probably be steadfast. His leadership's 7, so it's not great, but we do what we can, basically, I guess. He failed at those, so it was all good. The other Kinida tried to fight the Centaurs, and it didn't work out for them. This giant, I'm pretty sure, took down my chariots and my razors, so they're looking like they're over there, but I'm pretty sure they're dead. And that was pretty much the game. So in the end, the giant lived. I think that one Kinida lived, and the Tuskers lived, but I cleaned up these tribesmen. I cleaned up the Kinida over here, and I didn't lose that much. Like, the chariots are 300 points. I lost 1 unit of gargoyles for 150. Otherwise, most of my things are looking pretty... Oh, obviously the Razortusks, so another 430, but army's looking pretty well intact. Objective firmly in hand. So this one ended up being an 18-2 to me, so I was flying really high going into my game 3. Overall, in terms of the game, I think... Probably better to see it from here. This flank got a little bit sketchy, so there are a few things obviously I'm relying on. I do have a speed advantage over the Oryx, but I can't chaff it the way that he can chaff me, and while I have chaff over there, I can't chaff him because I'd be relying on a leadership 7 terror check, and I don't. Like, that's not really very reliable. So I see some ways that could have gone pretty poorly. Like, when I charged the Oryx is going to get the Rider on top, which is like 3, strength 4, and the Oryx itself, which is 5, strength 6 or 7 or whatever it is. And I prioritized buffing the minnows because of where I pushed them to. So because I had pushed them to here, I focused on them first. So Centaurs, what? When you've got 3 attacks that hitting you on... I think it's still only hitting them on 4s, but wounding you on 4s, that could easily do 2 wounds. The Rock Oryx could roll well and do like 6 wounds to you. I think that it was a risk over there, even when I charged him, particularly if he had made the charge into me that he declared at one point, because then he gets all these impact hits and stuff. So I think that was a place that I could have gotten in real trouble. Looking back on the game, I would have liked a way to avoid that. Or I would have liked to have deployed a bit better or done something to make that a little bit less of a risky like part of the board. Other than that, like I don't know, like these the Razortusks and the Chariots, I don't have many good things that can deal with. Essentially, the things that can deal with monsters well and reliably, I think, in my list are Centaurs and Minotaurs. But the Minotaurs want to play centrally, particularly since where my BSB is. So I did have a little bit of worry in this game, basically, in the fact that I don't trust either my Chariots or my Razortusks against this giant, basically. So this was also a bit of a concern over here, I guess. I think that quite possibly, I mean, it depends on how Jack views the middle, but in his shoes, I think that I wouldn't have been overly confident about fighting the Minnows. So I probably would have taken the risk of pushing up pretty aggressively with this giant, like copying a charge by the Chariots and probably winning anyway. What is he armed with, actually? With a great weapon, like I'd expect that he'd be pretty easily able to handle those Chariots even if they charged him. Because I mean, what average of 10 impact hits, which is like 5 wounds, and that giant's, yeah. I mean, maybe I'm underestimating my own Chariots, but the thing is basically that I feel like a giant fighting the Razortusks always has a decent chance because they may have just been in my general range and stuff here. I think I would have tried to keep them in if I can. So, but because of the fear and because they're on their own leadership 6, it's the sort of thing where I don't like this at all, and I can't charge him and let my Razortusk get too far away because then their leadership, I can't buff them with leadership. And they're only offensive 3, so this was, yeah, I guess both of my flanks here were a bit of a concern. I was happy with the Centaurs, probably, and I had some plays over here because, you know, I'd be rolling dice for the Chariots or whatever. I outspeed him, so I do threaten these things, but I think this is sort of a little bit of a paper tiger because I could also see this flank easily folding. Maybe with some, like a move that sends his chaff out to chaff the Minotaurs. He could have brought his Mournfang over there as well, potentially. Like a similar issue with fighting Mournfang, that I can just lose my they cause fear, so they're really bad for the Razortusk to fight. But it wasn't a problem. Oh, I mean, it could have been a problem because you see how the flank went in the end, where the giant has just cleaned them all up on his own. But it didn't cause a problem in the game in the end, basically, because everything else was going quite well for me. But those were my sort of 2 big areas of concern in this game. I didn't love either of my flanks, but I think from the outset I had a pretty good play for both objectives. I needed to hold things getting into my backline and causing trouble, and I needed to make sure that these guys couldn't just run down and dominate the flanks. Yeah, I think potentially with a little bit better positioning of the Oryx and the Hunter over here as well, I could have been in some trouble. So I think there was some problems with how I deployed and how I approached this game, but at the same time, it might be more difficult to actually create like the problems that I'm envisioning here on the actual board. Like sometimes you sort of see like, oh, I was really scared of this, but I was really scared on this right flank, but maybe there's not really a way that he can approach with this giant that doesn't result in him getting like slammed by 2 units, and in that case may be okay for, even if I fail fear or whatever, I'm sending enough attacks at him that he's going to take enough wounds that I win the combat regardless. So maybe it's more difficult than I'm envisioning to actually take advantage of these flaws, but also Jack and I had quite a few beers, and they, particularly by the end of the game, so we're not really expecting top level play here. But it was a really fun game. Jack was a great opponent, and I think basically he ended the game. He was like, yeah, the big mistake here was charging the minnows. So I think here, because he's got so much on the board, it's still a fairly open game. I do think I have the advantage because these Centaurs are in a really troubling position. You know, I can heal this Chariot. I've got Chaff again for this guy because these guys rallied. If he doesn't charge the Minotaurs, like, what else does he do? But, like, I mean, I 100% agree with what he said, where he was like, I shouldn't have charged my bruises with my 2 characters into your minnows because it was just a losing battle. Particularly because I think I had a Binding Scroll if I needed it for... and I might even used it on his Hereditary for this round. So, yeah. Charging those Minotaurs, typically, is a way to get your units killed if they've got any buffs up. So, I managed to get away with it in this one. We'll see what happens in the next game. I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.